Alright, I'm going to talk about Rufio. Here we go. In 1991, Steven Spielberg released a follow-up film to one of history's most beloved stories, Peter Pan. Having been attached to Peter Pan for about a decade or so, in some way or another, the movie would bring him back to the prominence of family-friendly films like E.T., after making more mature films like The Color Purple and Empire of the Sun. Despite the film having more of a negative critical response and now being seen in retrospect as more of a failure than a success, I unapologetically love this film. It does have its problems, but the cast is fantastic, the set pieces are enormous, and its themes around adulthood, especially being a parent, are second to none. My name's Josh Taylor, this is 1901, and I want to talk about the family adventure film Hook and the importance of imagination and wonder. This video is part of a larger collective called the Directors Project. Every month we're picking one director, and YouTubers from all around the world will be making videos about that director and their films. This month we're focusing in on Steven Spielberg. You can actually find the entire playlist in the description box down below this video. See all of the videos, and if you want to contribute your own video, you can. Submit it to be part of the playlist by jumping on Twitter and shooting a tweet over to my friends at CultPopture, and they'll consider you part of the playlist. A sense of wonder is just something that we're born with, amazed by the world around us. We innately want to learn about how things work or what things are. But as we grow older, there are so many things that bring stress and insecurities and worry to our sense of wonder. Hook begins with Peter Banning and his family visiting Grandma Wendy. Peter is irritable, distracted by work, and has very much lost his sense of wonder and imagination. As Grandma Wendy tells Peter's children the story of Peter Pan, he denounces it as just a silly children's story, and that his life and work is much more important than that story. Peter at this point in his life had completely forgotten his background and repressed his memories. He was Peter Pan and had left Neverland for love, first for Wendy and eventually for her daughter Moira. He would get married to Moira, have children, and become the adult that he fought against in Neverland. Peter's distractions have really made his children resent him, in particular his son Jack. Jack isn't able to relate to his father, and his father really isn't there for him, not at his baseball games or even when he simply wants to play at home. Like the stories that he denounces, Peter sees playtime as unimportant. And while his daughter has a loving female role model in Moira, Jack doesn't really have that with his father, Peter. It's clear to us as the viewer from the beginning of the film that this kid who used to fight pirates and party with mermaids and Native Americans had really lost his sense of wonder and imagination. And so much so that when magical things start happening to him, like a visit from Tinkerbell or being able to fly and be whisked away to Neverland, he tries to rationalize it. And he refuses to expand his mind to think that the magical could be real. And of course, this time he has to return to Neverland to save his children from the dastardly Captain Hook. His denial about where he is or knowing who the Lost Boys are is played up for jokes. But in a serious look at adulthood, it's a bit taboo, culturally, to have adults play in the same wonder and imagination that they had as children. And we as adults often repress our urges for play to fit those cultural norms. Even as the new leader of the Lost Boys, Rufio, comes to confront Peter, Peter just doesn't really think much of him, asking him where his parents are and telling him to put down a sword because children shouldn't be carrying weapons. Rather than being able to play with the Lost Boys or having some fun sword fight with Rufio, he just doesn't want to be around these children, and he just thinks that he's above them. Let's be honest, nobody's above Rufio, because Rufio is the coolest character in this film. But let's take a step away and back from Hook for a minute, because I think it's important to know that the story about Peter Pan is really a story about its tellers and how they've touched base with their own imaginations. James Barrie, the original author and playwright of Peter Pan, would meet the Llewyn Davies family at the Kensington Gardens Park near his home. During their frequent meetups, he would entertain the children with stories and parlor tricks, and really befriend the parents Arthur and Sylvia Davies. At the time that he met the Davies children, he was in his mid-30s, married, but had no children of his own. And if you've seen the movie Finding Neverland, you've definitely seen what I'm talking about. And even though it's an over-dramatized explanation of the James Barrie relationship with the Davies family, there is a lot of truth there. The Davies children really inspired James Barrie to write Peter Pan, and he would even include some of their names in the story. They really did become his muses, sparking his imagination to become one of the greatest writers of the 19th century. In the 20th century, there were many different versions, on stage and on screen, of this story, but one in particular became the most defining. That's Walt Disney's 1953 classic animated film, Peter Pan. Walt Disney saw himself as a Peter Pan type. He built an empire around animation. He would spend the weekends playing alongside his daughters, and when he opened Disneyland in 1955, he saw it as his personal playground. He would take the fire truck and go up and down Main Street driving around before the park would ever open. And when guests did come into the park, you could see him openly talking to families, especially children, about their time there. Steven Spielberg grew up a fan of the Walt Disney version of Peter Pan. He would even direct a version of Peter Pan for his elementary school. And as he got into filmmaking, much like Peter Pan, he would look at world building and script writing with his own sense of wonder. And his early films really do have that childhood sense of imagination. E.T., Jaws, Raiders of the Lost Ark, all of these films are filled with exploration and discovery. So it doesn't seem very far-fetched that Steven Spielberg would attach himself to a story about Peter Pan. Especially a story about an adult Peter who has to refine his imagination and bring that back to his family. As Peter hangs out with the Lost Boys and starts to relearn who he used to be, he's asked to fly, and to do so he has to think of a happy thought. It's something that he has trouble with initially, and understandably. Adulthood is filled with a lack of happy thoughts. But as he begins to play again, open up his imagination to a colorful buffet dinner, or to believe the possibilities of the impossible, he learns to fly and to find his happy thoughts. And his happy thought isn't something childish at all. It's his children, it's his wife Moira, it's Wendy. He puts the stress of life and work behind him to make time for his family and playtime and a grand sense of wonder. In the final act of the film, where the pirates and the Lost Boys go to battle, Rufio, again, the coolest character, ends up dying at the hands of Captain Hook. And in his last dying words, he tells Peter that he wishes he had a father like him. Only having known the Peter that could fly or crow or play, Rufio truly saw Peter as the leader of the Lost Boys, and had restored Rufio's faith in what adults could be. When Peter was brought back to Neverland initially, he talked down to the Lost Boys and wrote them off as just children. But as he learned to play and touch base with his imagination, he became a relatable and loving parental figure. And he became a father and a friend to Rufio and the Lost Boys. A great parent isn't just somebody who provides a home and a space for their children's imagination, but they're someone who fully engages in that world of wonder with them, never losing sight that playtime and fun and imagination are something that we all need, even as adults. Steven Spielberg has gone on record saying that he was never confident in making Hook, and the original idea of making it a musical was probably the better route to go. And many critics have stated that Steven Spielberg would have been better off having made a retelling of the original story of Peter Pan than this sequel. Spielberg's insecurities can be seen with an expanding budget, making the set pieces more and more elaborate, and bringing on actors that created a larger-than-life performance. And let's be clear, this film has great performances. Dustin Hoffman is clearly the best version of Captain Hook that there's ever been. And Bob Hoskins and Julia Roberts bring so much fun to the characters of Smee and Tinkerbell. And Robin Williams was pretty much at peak Robin Williams in the late 80s, early 90s. And again, Rufio. Dante Basco as Rufio is freaking iconic. But I'd argue that I think that Steven Spielberg is wrong here, and that this movie should have never been a musical. But it's good just as it is, a family-friendly adventure film. The drama and fun in Hook make this idea of imagination a central focus for the film. There are just too few films that touch on this topic. Tom Hanks in Big might be the next best besides Hook. But I think Hook delivers a sound message and a free hall pass to keep discovering, to never grow up, and to keep playing because it's important. Not only to just engage with children and other adults, but to never lose those happy thoughts. Those imaginary moments of fun. And that sense of wonder that the world can be a more enjoyable and better place. Let me know in the comments down below what you think of Hook and what your favorite Steven Spielberg film is. I do love Hook, but I also really love Jurassic Park and E.T. and some of the lesser known films that you might not think of off the top of your head. I do love Catch Me If You Can and The Terminal, but I think that's also because of my love for Tom Hanks. And I love all of the Indiana Jones films, except for 4. But that's fine. 1, 2, and 3, I'll take those. Also, click the link for the rest of the director's project so that you can see all of the videos that everyone's made. And if you're a YouTube creator and you're interested in joining, or maybe you haven't made a video before and this might be your chance to jump in, do it. We'd love to have you. And if you're interested in supporting what I do here at 1901, you can subscribe to the channel, give this video a thumbs up, and make sure to check out the merch link in the description down below as well, because I just added a brand new Rufio shirt. Because again, I think he's the coolest character in the film. Maybe in cinema history, that might be going a bit too far, but I'll stand by it. And you can find all the links for everything down below. My podcast, the social media links, the director's project playlist, everything, right down in the description below. And until next time, my friends, thanks for watching, and keep moving forward.